Good morning, folks. How are we doing this morning? It's a very wet day in West Cork this morning. I am supposed to be out working, but life doesn't always work in ways you want it to. So I decided to present some more information. Maybe the weather is a good thing today. Maybe it's a bad thing. We'll have to wait and see. Having watched the last video, I realised that there is an awful lot of help needed, not only for myself, literally for me to talk about this, I learn as well, but also a lot of help is needed for every single individual way shower out there. The people that are trying to make a difference through tolerance, through learning, through understanding, through joy, and the inverse of joy too. We learn in all those different gamuts. And what I wanted to do was to try and present to you, the viewers, hopefully some ways that you can represent your unit towards others, to be able to try and help others be what it is they need to be in the current climate, because we're all having to make choices we don't necessarily want to make. If you want a nice fast car and a big shiny something or other outside the house, 9 times out of 10 you've either got to work very hard for it, or you've got to go to the bank or whatever it is you do and borrow some money to get that thing. Now, then you've got the concerns afterwards of making payments and so on for that. Those are all a matter of material choices. We have so many different aspects of material choice, and they're advertised on the television. They're pushed you in so many different arenas. I mean, if you go into one of these big superstores selling electrical gear, even though you have 3 televisions in the house, you could easily come out with a 4th because you feel bad that you haven't actually bought something. So there's some level of subliminal circumstance going on. Be aware that all those things are there. You end up buying things you don't need to. Now, that's the material aspect that we're all part of, and we can all fall foul of these arenas. If you have a few bob in your pocket, why not go out and buy something? Fair enough. Why not share it with somebody else? Why not give some to your children, or, help somebody out, whatever it is you choose to do with it. But be responsible for your actions. So, what's this got to do with love and unity? It's all part of it. I spoke last time about the Trinity. The mind, body and spirit, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. The mental plane, the plane of the soul and the plane of the spirit. Now, when in our busy lives, and we all lead relatively busy lives, I mean, we don't sit around twiddling our thumbs waiting for something to happen. We're all out doing something in the world. That's what we do as human beings. If we don't, we become idle. And idleness is not a good place for the mind. So, we go out and present ourselves in the work arenas. We do our day's work and often come home tired and exhausted, and we don't have time to read the book that we've been promising ourselves to do. We don't have time to necessarily delve into the garden and get in contact with Mother Nature. We sit there, have another cup of coffee because we're tired. That's what we all do. So that's okay. But it's not okay if we forget the other arenas. And the other arenas are soul, spirit. Very important. In the material world, we will use the material aspect of our mentality predominantly. We're not a yogi. We don't sit up in the mountain in a cave somewhere and meditate all our lives. That's not our job. That's not our plan. But we are not necessarily made aware of the importance of the other aspects of you, me, and everyone else. So we have to go and find that part of ourselves for ourselves. And there's very good reasons for finding that part of yourself, especially now with what's happening. You go, oh, what is happening? Robin, what is it that we should be observing? Well, there's an awful lot of people that are observing very little because they possibly are not deemed to make a change. But if you are deemed to make a change and move from one transition point to the next, it's like changing platforms on a station. All those that are on platform A, expecting the train to come by and taking them down there, they don't want to move, they're fine, they know exactly what they're doing, and they're carrying on and doing it. But you want to go onto platform C over there, so you've got to go up and walk across a bridge, across the railway and back down. So you need to learn how to do that. So you, me, and many other people that want to make that change. And that change, incidentally, isn't just a change within, it's the change that's going to give you the opportunity to move into a different transition of trajectory of experience. Now, as I said before, this isn't going to happen in this lifetime. This isn't going to go bang and it all of a sudden happens and we transcend into another dimension. From my perception, it's going to happen over a period of time, probably 2 or 3 lifetimes. Now you can go, well, I don't want to be here in 2 or 3 lifetimes. You have to be somewhere. Whether you're up in the Pleiades or wherever it is you choose to be, you have to be somewhere. And the fact that you've kind of got used to being here, you might as well do it here and be the best person that you can whilst you are here. And whilst you're doing that, you grow an opportune component of consciousness that is going to allow you to head in a new directive, creating a new parallel existence alongside this one that you don't necessarily want to be part of anymore, but you were part of it for a long period of time, but you now wish to change. So you're changing your platform and you need the mapping to get yourself to the new platform just over there. Now, how do you do that? Let's go into a little bit more detail as to how that can happen. Because, it's not going to happen if you've got 25 fast cars, 58 houses throughout the world. That is something that you've learned to do and appreciate within the material world. And we have all been there, incidentally. We've all been that person. So don't look down on them and go, that's wrong, because it's not. It's right for them. And the way they get their material gain is right for them. Now you might look at it and go, well, it's unjust. That's dirty money. Fair play. That's their choice. But it isn't yours. So you just accept that and move on from it without being angered by it. And you accept that that is another person playing in a different arena to you. And you let that one go. The most important thing is you. What is it that I need to get myself to this new platform? Now, it's not as if I'm sitting here and I have all the answers, because invariably enough, we all have the answers. It's just some people have the availability to be able to cherry pick those answers and bring a potential into play so it can be looked at in more detail. Now, there's nothing that I'm saying to you out there that you aren't already thinking about. You think, well, yeah, that makes sense, that's plausible. That's potentially what seems to be happening. And when you start building all the that's kind of an end result, because we as human beings, we need plausibility. We need to have shoes on to go across rocky sand paths. Otherwise it makes your feet sore. So you need to learn the way of doing these things relatively comfortably, so you don't have an awkward transition between A and B. If anyone's been across the channel in a storm or a gale, it's very uncomfortable. It's much better to go in a dead calm way. So this is what we are trying to learn to do. Now, before I decided to do this morning, I had full ideas of what I thought I was going to say. And the trajectory of thinking was following on from the previous video, the previous set of information. And as I've watched those previous pieces of information imparted to me, and a good lot of it is new to me because it's channeled directly from here through to the screen. So, I'm looking at it going, oh, that's interesting. I like that. And it's as if the guy that's delivering it isn't me. And I'm going, fair play to you, mate. I'm really delighted you've given that to me. So I'm kind of happy, well, like that fella, that other part of me, has delivered. I'm delighted because it's giving me credence to what it is that I'm feeling inside, and also a little bit more information as to what it is that I do to allow my settings to change. Now, love is the key to all things. That's a difficult thing. I mentioned last time, this places that we go, which is the anger bit up there. Sometimes if you stub your toe, you need to be angry because it allows the pain to dissipate easier, and you can spleet and swear and all those things, and then the pain dissipates, and then you've got to deal with this bloody toe or whatever it is you've done. And then you've got the other asset down there, which is that beautiful scenario of happiness. Smelling flowers before you see them, the call of a lamb in a field just as it's born, the sunset on a clear day across the sea with mountains in the distance. Those are places where they implore within you complete and utter love and care, because you think, wow, that's incredible. Or you haven't seen your daughter or your son for a long period of time, and you meet them at the airport or off the train, and that feeling that you get and the tears that pour down your face, those are really, really important things. But they're not with us all day long. They're there at that moment, and then it's not long before you're thinking about work and paying the mortgage or whatever it is you do, and you're back to that level platform, what I call neutral zone. Anger's up there, not a great place to stay. Get back out of there quickly, come back down to neutral zone. Enjoy those moments where you see love encapsulated within you and the people around you. Enjoy that and hold on to it. And then you can just drift back up to neutral zone. Stay as often as you can in the memories of love. Also know that anger is an emotion and it has its reasons for being there. Grief is a lazy form of anger. So if you are grieving, technically you are angry. It's a lazy form of anger. Now, somebody told me that years ago, and I thought, wow, that's a really good explanation. So I take those things away and I use them because, if it means something to me, and I am a curator of information, if it's useful and it can be recycled, I'll take it as my own and impart it to others to hopefully be able to give somebody an essence of what it is that I'm trying to create, embroider in words, to create a picture in your minds. Now, this morning, before I even started this video, I thought, what am I going to speak about today? And before I had even had an opportunity to consider the options, the words came to me. So the first title is Uniqueness of Spirit. Now, what does that mean? Uniqueness of spirit. Are we unique? Of course we are. Each and every one of us is unique. Yet we carry what's called spirit. Now, how can we discern between the mental plane and the spiritual plane? Well, I know that most of you know the answer to this, but it's very easy, as I've said to you before, where you get lost in a world way up there because you've got so much information that you don't know what to do with it, and you forget about what I call the important nuts and bolts of being a being connected to its three components and acknowledging that they're there. So uniqueness of spirit is understanding that it is there. in its totality. Now, spirit in itself can gather so much momentum and take you to so many different places. Those that meditate know that. Your spirit has a divine connection to pretty much wherever or whatever you want it to be. You can take it to the deepest seas, up the highest mountain. You can meet and greet the people that have left this planet, and they're in another realm. That spirit in itself is eternal. You are eternal. You are unique. So you might go, well, as a human being, I'm not unique. Well, you are. Everything you're doing is completely unique because somebody else can't do it in exactly the same way as you. Some people are truly unique in circumstance. Somebody can play the cello or the guitar in an incredible way, or paint the most outstanding pictures that nobody else can do, or swim across seas that people just find unfathomable, talk to the animals. Those are unique perspectives on the mental plane, but it's using a divine connection with your spirituality as well. So uniqueness of spirit is understanding and feeling that you are connected outside of the physical realm. Now, the physical realm is where most people's thought patterns reside. And most of the people, getting back to the start of the talk, people on the platform that have no idea that there is any need whatsoever to change because it's not their remit. And it isn't your remit to tell them either. It's your remit to acknowledge that you have a feeling of inertia that you need to go in another direction to them and be respectful of that. I mean, if anyone's been sitting at a dinner table and you've got an accountant or somebody that's absolutely attached to what it is they want to do and they try and force it on you, it's not long before you're yawning or leaving to go to the bathroom because you want to get away from it. People talking about and listening to stuff they don't want to hear bores people. People will only hear what they want to hear. And generally, when you have something to share with somebody and it's of a certain resonance, you will bump into people who are interested. This is why birds of a feather flock together. It's how it works. Energy attracts energy. Energy is like a magnet. I know we all know this, but sometimes we forget the simple things that we need to utilize right now to be able to move us from platform A to platform C. So uniqueness of spirit is acknowledging that you are the key to where it is you need to go. Nobody else is that key. You are the key. And you are not going to find the journey using your mental attributes. They certainly will help when you have designated what it is you're going to do, because they will bring a certain amount of sensible action in a human form. So your feet start implementing change and you start trotting off towards platform C or D. But you're going to feel it through here, through your heart. Get that feeling, that warm, bubbly feeling that something is happening and I'm feeling it and it feels right and it's loving and caring. Okay. Energy in natural flow was the next wording that came to me. So energy in natural flow, what does that mean? You know, are you energy in natural flow? And how can you discern that flow in itself is the right directive for you? Are you going in the right direction? I'm going to give you an example. I've been looking at the weather last week of what's going to happen this week because I'd had last week off and I was working on my boat. I enjoy a bit of sailing, so I was trying to get my boat up and running and doing what I needed to do. But I knew that, having returned from the Isle of Wight and seeing Carolyn and my mum and my family and so on, which is important, I came back and I gave myself a few days off, did some work on the boat, and I was due to start a job today. And I had it dialed in to the hard drive up here. I'm due to go to start this job today. Yeah, I looked at the weather. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it is looking like a washout, and the work is outside, so I'm not working outside in the rain, and the work that I'll do certainly wouldn't function properly in the rain, so I can't do it. So energy in natural flow is being able to change with the wind, being able to accept that situations that aren't necessarily conducive to you in your physical form, you've got to make sure that they are conducive to you eventually. So how can you do that? You know, it's about relaxing and letting these things happen. You know, choices in themselves are very, very difficult to make when you can't see a choice. You know, you want to go in that direction, and that's where I want to go. And it's not happening for me today, and you're angered by that fact. It makes you frustrated. Now, I can remember years ago, you know, in my 20s, when all you see is the direction in front, you can't see anything either side of that's just how you are. Bang. And that's the makeup of somebody in their 20s. Teenager, it's even more so. There's only one direction. I mean, my parents used to say, hurry up and leave home, sunshine, whilst you still know everything. You soon realise you don't know very much at all. But that's what they used to say. So, you know, you have to be accepting of this. But as you get older, you have to take the blows as they come and utilise the time that you might have been doing something else, the one thing you wanted to do. Utilise it and do something that fills you up, makes you feel happy. You know, when you're at work, typing away or whatever it is you're doing, you might be engineering something or drawing something or whatever it is, talking to people on the phone, and your imagination drifts off and you go, if I was at home now in the sunshine that's beaming outside, I'd be doing this. And you have these aspirations, being in the garden or sitting in a jet chair having a nice drink and looking out at the view or talking to your neighbour or whatever. How often do you actually do that when you get the spare time? You don't. You get home and you start worrying about all the things you should be doing. So energy in natural flow isn't energy in unnatural flow. Energy in natural flow is letting the spontaneity of life come in. Now, if you look at a bottle, okay, and it's full of sweets, right up to the top, and there's a lid on the top, most of us are full up with expectations, needs, wants, lusts, whatever it is. We're full up with them. Our bottle is full. There's no room for spontaneity in your bottle of opportunity because it's full. You've filled it up. Nobody else has filled it up. You've filled it up. You've allowed it to be filled up. Yes, you can go, well, my boss keeps giving me more work and I've got files that high, or I've got all this work to do on the books and I've got 28 painting contracts or whatever it is. But you've allowed that to happen. There is something called no, or I won't, or I don't have the time. There's all those things. So energy in natural flow is allowing your true energy to flow. How can that happen if your bottle is full? There's no room for anything else to come in. It's full of things that you've put in there and you haven't allowed space. Now, if you clear some of that space and there's a third of the bottle left, there's opportunity there for spontaneity. You know, I have a great adage. You know, when I'm busy, and we've got a few coffee shops, and I don't mind sitting having a chat with people, especially people I don't see that often. And you're driving past a coffee shop, and there's a fellow you know, and you haven't seen him for 2 or 3 months, and he says, "Come and have a cup of coffee with me." And you'll go, no, I can't, I'm doing a job. Now, you may just have missed out on something really important in that conversation. And it might not be the conversation you have with him, but it might be something you see, something you experience, or an emotion that is gifted to you during that procedure that you've missed out on because you were too busy to allow that thing to happen. That's spontaneity. Allow it to happen. You know, a lot of people out there have the mapping where they have everything worked out and organised. Oh yeah, when I grow up, I'm going to do this, and I go and do that, and I go and do that, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'll have the house, and then I'll have maybe 3 or 4 children, a lovely husband that loves me, great, or a lovely wife that loves me. And these things happen. Yet, it was all mapped out. Now that's fine, because that's called projection. Businesses look at things with projections. If you're doing it purely from a business transaction, then that's fair play to you. But you see, is your interpretation of where you're going allowing any space whatsoever for anything out of the mental plane? Because a lot of those decisions are based potentially on insecurity and worry. Now, if you look into that, you might go, well, Robin, I disagree with you. And you have every right to disagree with me. But you see, if you mapped your life out with regards to just the mental plane, you're going to miss out on the soul and the spirit. And those things will have different requirements. Now, also with mapping out your life, you invariably quite often fill your bottle up to the full because you're just going and sailing in one direction, and you're going to miss lots of different ports of call on the way because you've only gone from there to there. You haven't stopped in between. So clearing the bottle of space is really, really important, allowing for spontaneity, allowing for the opportune moments for things to change. Now, one thing I do know, getting to my tender age, is if you don't allow things to change, everything will stay the same. And one of the prerequisites to madness is doing the same thing every day and expecting a different result. Now, some of you would have heard that before. It's common sense. So, try and make a difference. Drive a different way to work in the mornings. Take different sandwiches in your sandwich box. Speak to somebody differently on the way to work. Just do something different that allows a different change in texture and colour to come to you. Because, we aren't all sitting there meditating 24/7. We've got lives to lead, and we lead those in the human arena. And the human arena is designed for the appropriation of the mind. That's what it's designed for. There are other aspects of it, and we won't go into those, but, the human arena in itself has so many different playing fields. And you have an opportunity to choose as you get older which playing field you wish to play in. But nobody tells you this. Nobody actually says, oh, by the way, there's 28 playing fields out there. Choose whichever one you want to. Generally what happens is you think there's only one. And that's the one you're in because you haven't allowed your mind to stretch beyond that process. Now, I know we have been enticed and moving into very layman's terms, very everyday Bill and Ben type stuff. But we are Bill and Ben. We're human beings. We're in physical form. We make and do the same things that most people do. Even though we have a connectivity to spirit, we read lots of books. We may be a channeler or a healer, or a psychic, or whatever it is that we find ourselves being. But that's a very small snip of your life, a very small component of your life. And invariably enough, very few people know about that aspects of you because you keep it to yourself. You just do what you do. And you feel locked away, compartmentalised often, and why aren't people listening to me? Why isn't all these wonderful things happening to me right now? Because you are at the point where you have to dine on your own energy. You no longer have the situation where you can recruit others to help and support you. You no longer have the situation where you have groups, situations, places, times, events. It is about you being what it is you are and standing in your own light. That is something that I try and impart to people. You know, my children are nowhere near ready to have me talking to them about what it is I think I know. Notice I said what I think I know, because I'm not crass enough to go, well, look, this is how it is, because that's not how it is. But we have to have explanations, a playing field, a platform, to be able to designate some unique directive. So maybe that's what my job is, to try and create a perspective in human layman terms as to where we are as humanity, where we are, what options we have right now, because seemingly a lot of people think there are no options. We're trapped up with our nose up against the wall. You know, do I have to do what everyone else is doing? Am I going to be forced to make decisions that compromise every ideal that I have inside my heart? So when I talk to my children, one of the things that I always say to them is never compromise your ideals and bring your ideals down to somebody else's, because that's the common standard. You always stand up for what you believe in. Now, when you're young, you stand up for what you believe in, and sometimes those ideals aren't necessarily real ideals. But when you're young, they're real. They're very real. So, that compromise that you put in play just weakens you. It demeans that innate spirit that you have. So energy in natural flow needs to be you allowing energy to flow through you and allowing spontaneity to come into your life. Now I'm going to have a little sip of my peppermint tea from out of the garden, even though it's wet and windy out there today. Did I mention that? Now, the next title heading I hear is Remarkable Observation. Well, I was thinking, why have they given me that word? Remarkable observation. Well, from the layman's terms, a remarkable observation is seeing things that other people don't necessarily see. You could be walking down the street and there's a lady out there doing a weekly shopping trip, and she hasn't spoken to anyone. Her family don't speak to her very often because they're embarrassed that they don't visit as often as they should. So she doesn't have a lot of social, or he doesn't have a lot of social interaction. And you just say, good morning, how are you today? And that could be the difference between them having a slightly better day than they were already having. Remarkable observation is being able to see others in the way you'd like to be seen yourself. Remarkable observation is also having the ability to have the insight to see that other people are struggling in a similar way to you. Also, remarkable observation is when you see things out the corner of your eyes. Now, when you see things here out in this periphery, or you feel things behind you, that's remarkable observation. Now, the spirit world or the other realms cannot give you conclusive evidence that they are there, because that's not what they're there to do. But they can give you an option to think they might be there. Okay, so they're not actually condemning themselves to breaking the rules. So if something needs to get a message to you that we are here, they're going to do it in the periphery. There. That's where you're going to see it, in the periphery. Now, years ago when Carolyn was doing a lot of work with orbs, and she'd be out taking photographs, and then she'd zoom in on the orbs, and if you look inside an orb, there's often faces, there's all sorts of things to be seen in there. It was remarkable what she was coming up with, and the very fact that she was out there looking for them meant that she was going to find them. How often you just take a photograph in the dark and it's just pitch black, and then when you digitized it, there were all white blobs in there, and then you zoomed in on the blobs, which we have the ability to do now with modern technology, and you look inside the blobs and there's faces and there's strange setups in there. Now, one day she came up and she had taken a photograph just outside of my old house called Gabriel's Return, and it was a beautiful place sitting at the foot of Mount Gabriel. And Mount Gabriel is it's a beautiful place, and it was a great place to live, a great place to bring my children up and live and have a beautiful garden and live in nature and be bathed and comforted by that. Not a great place to make a living, certainly wasn't for me, but I made a living in so many other ways. You know, it brought me back to life. It pumped something very important back into me, which is family unity. It gave the children a perspective that they are yet to truly understand, but they will as they get older. Anyway, Carolyn took this photograph, and there was this lady. And as you zoomed in, there was this a lady, and she had a non-human face, but human, so you could see she wasn't quite human, and she had an old cloth cloak on her, and Carolyn said to me, "Robin, what's this?" And I said to her, without thinking too much, "Those are what called the Watchers." "What are Watchers?" she said. And I said, "Well, Watchers are people that observe. That's all they're doing. They're just observing from a different perspective to us. They're observing not only what we're doing, but they're observing the grass growing, the unique perspective of a raindrop hitting the floor, the way a leaf is blown by the wind. They're observing all sorts of things that are going on. They observe without any need whatsoever to correlate that information. Watchers. Now, I don't know whether you do this, but I'm sitting in the room and I just look around and I just look away and I see little sparks of light around, ping, 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 ping around. And I know those are little portals, observation points, where others are viewing and looking in. But you also have the opportunity, if you wish, to observe through that portal point and see another aspect of where it is that light comes from, if you want to. I don't choose to go into those places because I have enough going on in my life as it is, without confusing my matters. And you know, if you go look into the abyss, very interesting, because it's an abyss out there, the abyss will look into you. And I have enough things going on, so I don't look too carefully in those directives. Yet I'm very aware they're there. I'm in no way dismissing any of these things, but you know, when your life's busy, you're busy, and you have to find time to reconvene important aspects of yourself. So, remarkable observation. Now that can go in so many different directives, but remarkable observations in themselves are the key to you communing with yourself and accepting there are things outside of your paradigm. Okay. Love in pure form. Now, isn't that just beautiful? Love in pure form. Now, I listen to a lecture. Now, I don't watch an awful lot on the internet, to be honest, and I don't read an awful lot of spiritual books either, simply because, you know, I like to discover my own way through things. I'm very individual in that. And the books that I do read or come across, or the things that I watch, are generally a perspective or a directive that I'm investigating at that point. I'm just interested to see somebody else's viewpoint on those. So I'll go in and look at them. So, you know, I try not to muddle my mind up with too many things, because, you know, if you are a informer of information, which I've been as a channeler and also as a healer, you just have to have a directive in which feels comfortable for you. So that's what I try and do. So love in pure form. Now, as I was saying to you, I was watching a lecture by a gentleman, and he basically stated, and it seemed very right to me, that we have only touched on minor aspects of what love is. There is accumulation of love that is far bigger and greater than the love that we experience here down on planet Earth. Much of which is an aspect of love. Now, if there's a guy over there beating his wife, is that love? There's a guy over there absolutely adoring and cherishing his children and furnishing them with whatever they need. Is that love? Is Jesus Christ coming down here talking to you? Love. Now we have to discern what aspect it is that is pure love. And it's quite difficult because, making love certainly isn't love, but it might be in the fact that you produce something that's loving and caring out of that action. So there's lots of different aspects, and what he was actually stating was that love in itself, in its pure flow, is the most incredible energy available to all aspects of life, within the cosmos, in all universes, and so on. Yet, its utility will have so many different components to it. So, getting back to you and I as human beings, the utility of love that we reside with and we work with is the one that we feel in here. That beautiful feeling of holding your child for the first time. Maybe watching your child get married to the right man. A lot of us watch our child get married to what appears to be the wrong person because there's lessons to be learned. But to actually watch somebody joined together and you know that there's a really good choice there is a delight for any parent. But there's lessons in all things. I don't have the full ramifications to be able to give you the totality of what love means, but love in pure form is knowing that it's there. Now, I mentioned before that the Christ consciousness resides in each and every one of us that works with love. And that good morning to the lady or the gentleman that was walking towards you, that hadn't had much human interaction, and you just say, good morning, how are you? And you've done that with love in your heart. Nothing more needs to be said. They might be a very private person. They don't want a conversation with you, but they're happy to have that exchange. So everything you do with love residing within your heart is love in pure form. Now, the next sentence I was given was joy within the soul. Isn't that lovely? How am I going to explain that when I think to myself? So what I do, frankly, is I just let the words come out. Often, if I interfere with the words with this thing up here, I got a pretty good idea of joy within the soul and what it might mean, and various books I might have read and other bits and pieces. But joy within the soul, from a perspective coming to me right now, is the understanding of the unity between the Trinity. If you had three friends, one was in Australia, one was in Timbuktu, and one lived in Clapham in London, and they didn't have the opportunity to meet very often, when they did, they realised that the best thing that they can do is be close to each other Now, if you can look at that joy within the soul is the acknowledgement, firstly, that the soul in itself is one component of three. Those three components are connected uniquely with your genetics, with that incredible set of helixes you have inside your genetics that vibrate at the God force level. Did you know that? Vibrate at the God force level. How are you going to vibrate at the God force level if you do not recognize the unique piece of equipment that does that? It's like having a power saw in the shed and you're using a handsaw because you don't realize that thing is just straight through. You know, you've got a unique piece of kit called the DNA, which is your connectivity to where it is that you've come from. And it's your beacon. Now, in human form, your connectivity to your genetics is through your heart and through love. There are other wiring schematics and other bits and pieces going on that constantly inform and interpret information that's plugged into the DNA. The DNA in itself is purely a recording device. It has no discernment whatsoever. If you've been a bad dog, it doesn't go, well, I'm not going to put that information in, then it's too bad. Or you've been a really lovely character and it's going, I'm not going to put that in, it's too good. Puts everything in there. All mixed up together. And you go, well, the good and the bad don't want to be in the same place, do they? Well, is that not part of experience? Is that not part of the adventure? Going into the Garden of Eden and seeing what can grow in there. You know, Adam and his apple and Eve and the snake. You know, they're the two objectives that we fail to discern as human beings. We just have this parity. Well, that's bad. That's good. I'm not going to do that, but I might do that, but I might do that someday. And in a previous lifetime, guaranteed the trajectory will be different. Guaranteed you have probably been a Saracen warrior, a Viking king or queen or something along the time where you've been really good and equally as bad in equal quantities. You've done all these things, whether it's on this planet or on another planet or in another dimension doing something similar. All these things are plugged in your genetics. So, what resides within your genetics is everything that you have been. And what you are being right now, your human in-being, is being recorded and popped in there right now. So, the choice is, what is it do you want placed within there? Do you want the words, well, I didn't make those choices because nobody told me to do them. Nobody gave me the direction that that's what I should have done. So I waited. I waited on the platform and the train didn't come and take me away. And I was like dumbfounded. Or do you want plugged in there that I made decisions based on what I felt was right at that point in time? And I didn't wait for Bob or Paul or Tim or Julie to come and tell me what to do. Now, I love the parallels of the Bible. There's a lot of truths in there. There's a lot of untruths in there, I suspect. But a lot of the stories in there are old fables and old potentials of what went on in biblical times. The previous 2,000-year cycle, incidentally, we're now in a different one. It's an old adage, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is wasted information, because it's certainly not. The human being needs to have his ship steered sometimes. We need a directive that helps us to realign ourselves when we step out of line, when we get lost in the woods. Jesus spent those days and nights in the Sinai desert with very little. to clear up his act, to recommune with his God from the source from whence he came. Think of yourself in the Sinai desert, yet you're sitting in a chair in your house with the comfort of a cup of tea in front of you. Yet you know that that's how you feel right now. Yet you know that the directives that you would love to have aren't there. You can't pick up a book and go, what page is the answer? And it's in page 28, and open it up. You're having to open your book up, this book here. And you're having to designate that information, those answers, for yourself. And if you don't feel equipped or self-reliant, then you are going to misinterpret what that means. So you do have to stand in your own divine light right now. Somebody said to me the other day, I've got all this knowledge inside me, yet I just feel there's one more thing I need to learn. And I said, well, look, maybe the school of learning finished yesterday. You've now got to make that choice yourself. And you need to make that choice acknowledging that that choice is the only one that you have. And also accepting that, if I do it or you do it with love and care, hopefully that is the right choice. Because that's where we are right now as individuals. We need to be making the right choices. Don't leave it till tomorrow or the next day. Because you're leaving that example in energy for your children, for your wife, your brother, your sister, your mum and your dad. You're leaving that energy for them. And they might be subliminally looking to you for the directive. They're not telling you that, but that's what they've always done. You just didn't realise that. You just go, well, look, we'll look for Tim or Bob. They're pretty good at making good choices at awkward times. We'll see what they do. And then we'll latch onto that and we'll follow down that road. So maybe, unbeknown to you, people actually respect the choices you make because you're known as the wise one. Yeah, you were always the one that stepped out of line and you were the black sheep in the family and you didn't necessarily go down the usual protocols of following Western world principles. But Western world principles will serve material tendencies and mammonistic tendencies. They do not serve spirit particularly well, and they certainly don't support the soul particularly well either. So allow yourself the dignity of knowing that you have got to where you are because you have earned the right to be there. Now you have to make bold steps in the name of you. So there we go. Joy within the soul. Acknowledging that there is the Trinity. Acknowledging that each of those components have individuality, yet they are connected intrinsically. Just like those three friends from three parts of the world that get together and communicate. Do not think that they are independent of each other. They are not. And once those three have put together that trinity of information, that information is fed into your genetics and it is fed directly to the God source. That is your directive. You're in charge. Continue to be so. Acceptance, the key to transit. Now that is very powerful. It's the last one on the list. Acceptance, the key to transit. To where? To the other platform. Just remember that on this platform that we're sitting on right now, as I said earlier, there's hundreds of thousands of people that have no realization or no wish whatsoever to make a paradigm shift. Happy to carry on as they are. They don't want to rock the boat. They'll just walk with the flock that's here. Now you don't want to carry on with that. You want to change. So you want to go over there to the new platform and be taken in another directive, which incidentally has got no set plan whatsoever. It's consciousness in pure flow. Consciousness in pure flow. Now, consciousness in pure flow is acceptance to the key to transit. The key to transit is accepting you need to go somewhere else because you have gleaned just about what you want from this little trip, this little sojourn in this 2,000-year cycle. And you now wish to move on and break away and have a parallel universe within the universe you are within. Will there be separation from family and friends? Yes, but they'll be there in a different form. Okay? There's no such thing as separation. We can only attain that feeling through separation that we've learnt to designate it in human form. That separation in itself is a humanistic tendency. We are eternal beings. We are soul carriers. But make sure you hang on to your soul. As I said to you before, there is a good chance that many people will give away their souls to something or someone else. And then your connectivity to your God is lost for eternity. So hang on to your soul. It's the most important thing. Acceptance, the key to transit. Acceptance in itself is removing the obligation to bring anyone else with you. Okay? Is it your right to tell your lover, your brother, your sister, your mum, your dad, they're getting it wrong? This is the way. And you must go in this way and you must do this. You must deal with all your stuff. Because to be able to move on, that's what you must do. Now, is that loving? Is that what you think love is? To force what you think is right on them? You're going to have to discern that for yourself. If you think that's loving, it very possibly isn't. It's possibly called interference. Okay, everyone has the right to do what they do and to make those choices. What you have the right to do is to make your journey principally your own. And if anyone comes up and says to you, please show me the way, that's when you open the door and you share with them. It's that way. Go up over the bridge, drop down onto platform D. That's where all us guys are going because there's an opportunity for change. Separation of the worlds. Which is happening right now, which I've talked about in the previous 2 videos. Now, what I'm trying to do is dilute this so that we can have a little bit more information and create a little bit more of a playground for us to understand what these things are and how you get there incidentally, because that's really important. You know, if you don't have a vehicle to take you on a journey, and if it's a long journey, then it could take you through uncomfortable places. So the vehicle that you are creating for yourself is unity within the Trinity, mind, body, and spirit. Now, if you look at the things that are written down before I started this conversation, uniqueness of spirit, energy in natural flow, remarkable observation, love in pure form, joy within the soul, acceptance, the key to transit. Within those words, within those sentences, are all the encapsulations of what it is that we need to impart, not to anyone else, but to ourselves, by giving ourselves permission to change, by giving ourselves permission on all levels that we have the right to move from this place to the next. Now, as I said to you, this isn't going to happen blip like that and all of a sudden, bang, we're gone. You know, this is going to happen principally over a few lifetimes. And as I said to you earlier, well, I don't want to incarnate on planet Earth again. You know, it's tough, it's rough here. Well, you're going to be incarnating somewhere. when you die, it can be here, it can be back out in the universe. Now, personally, you see, what you've got to remember is if you are out somewhere else in the universe, and you're a part of that aspect, you also have a part when this separation goes on, not just on planet Earth, it's happening within the universe, incidentally. This is not just an ideal happening on planet Earth, it's happening within the universe we are part of. And you can go, well, that's huge. Just remember the explanation with the conch shell. It's all happening in a minute cell. It's small but large. Small but large. So if you are separated because you choose not to incarnate back on this earth, because when you pass away from this earth and you choose not to get caught in the karmic loop, you can go back out to the universe, which is what we always used to do once upon a time. It's a story again, once upon a time. The separation is happening out there too. There's opportune moments there. Okay? So you're not going to lose out on that whether you're here or up there. You're still going to go through that separation because it's happening on a much bigger level. Okay? Now, I'm going to stop for now. There's a lot of information that's been imparted to you guys today. And I wasn't expecting to be delivering this. I was expecting to be working today. And, you know, I'm using the utility of time and space, clearing some space in the bottle that's in front of me and allowing this to happen rather than worrying about what it is I feel I should be doing in the physical sense. Now, the physical sense is a very important sense to adhere to. You know, we've got physical needs. You know, if you've got an arm that hurts, you need to rest it and do all those things. But you see, if you've got a soul and a spirit that hurts, it needs to be looked at too. And those are the things that you need to be acknowledging. Uniqueness of spirit, energy and natural flow, remarkable observation, love in pure form, joy within the soul, acceptance, the key to transit. These are words. Yep. They can be more than words if you make them part of your life. And they can be more than actions if you bring them and implore them and allow them to happen. Now, I've given you an explanation as to what they mean. You have to make them real for you. And you have to, if you wish, give them the opportunity to grow. Give them the fertilizer by your thought, by your acknowledgement, to allow that level of acceptance inside of your heart. If it feels right for you. Anyway, my friends, lovely talking to you. God bless you all. Have a really lovely day. God bless you. Bye now.